Hello everyone and welcome to Motorcyclegear.com. Today I am back out on the 2024 Honda Rebel 1100T and it's time to talk about the 5 things that I like about this bike. I am back on the 24 Honda Rebel 1100T, and if this is your first time checking out one of our bike reviews, here is a little bit of info. So typically I will do a 3-part series consisting of a full overall review video, a 5 things I like video, and a 5 things I don't like video. This of course is the 5 things I like video, so without further ado, let's jump in. Number 1 on the list of the 5 things that I like about this bike is going to be a potentially controversial one, or maybe not. I guess it depends on how strongly you feel about it, but this is going to be the dash or the instrument cluster gauge, whatever you want to call it. I did get a chance to see a sneak preview on the 2025 model, which depending on when this video comes out might not even be a sneak preview anymore, but the 2025 model does get a brand new 5-inch TFT display with a full color and tablet-like design, which seems to kind of be the standard these days when a lot of bikes are, kind of going in the direction of. But for 2024, as you can see here, this Rebel 1100T still makes do with a round reverse image LCD instrument with a side piece that houses all the warning lights, neutral light, and so on. Personally, to me, the classic look of a round version of a instrument cluster just fits this bike better. A Rebel is a cruiser, especially this T version here, and cruisers invoke this classic motorcycle vibe, so there's really no need to over modernize them like perhaps a naked or sport bike should be, as they have always kind of been more on the cutting edge of speed and tech and performance and so on, right? Anyway, so my point is I like the classic look of the 2024 version. I think it really fits this bike, it looks good, and I've had no trouble reading it in any lighting conditions that I've been. So in quick summary, fits the bike style, gives me all the info that I need, and it's easy to read. Honestly, what more could you ask for in a dash or an instrument panel? But at the same time, I do know that many people weren't fans of the whole reverse LCD era, if you will, and I know most people will happily welcome the new color 5-inch TFT, but again, for me, I feel like it's a little bit too new school, and I'm a little bit more of an old school purist here. So again, I'm quite happy with this setup right here. Alright, so moving on to number 2 on the list of things that I like about the 2024 Honda Rebel 1100T, and that is going to be the letter T. Well, not the letter T itself, but the fact that this is the Rebel 1100T or the T version, meaning that it's the touring version or the bagger, if you will. So Honda adds the hard side saddles or bags or luggage, depending on what you want to call it, and then also a handlebar mounted mini windscreen. Here's the thing, I think the standard Rebel 1100 is just fine. But one of the first 5 modifications or accessories that I think I and most others would get for it would be a windshield for those longer rides, and naturally speaking of the longer rides, some storage. And well, that's literally what the T version does for you. It gives you the windshield and the storage. And the best part is there's no guesswork on your end, no research, no anything. Honda takes care of the parts, the labor, and even gives you parts that were specifically designed for this bike. And not only that, the parts are also painted to be color matched, which is just icing on the cake, especially if you have one of the really nice colors that are available. Since this bike has come out, Honda has had quite a few colors outside of that usual black, white, gray mix, so it's really nice to have those complemented with your luggage. And then here's the best part, right? The manual 2024 Rebel starts at $9,549, while the manual T version is $10,699. So basically, you're paying just over $1,100 for bags, a windshield, paint, and installation labor. Yeah, that's a really hard deal to beat, especially if you consider that if you're not a DIY or mechanically inclined person and end up paying somebody for both paint and labor, that's going to be quite pricey. So again, great accessories that I would pick, great price, and great simplicity. And speaking of the bags, they are lockable, which is great. Obviously that adds more safety and convenience, and they're not overly wide either or large, so even with splitting lanes out here in Southern California, which by the way, it is legal if you didn't know. I know some people have commented on previous videos saying, hey, like, don't do that, blah blah. Totally 100% legal out here, so yeah. But again, not too wide, you don't feel too bulky, you don't feel like you're gonna catch, a car or something like that. So nice that they're compact and they fit the bike well. Additionally, the bags were great for this style of bike, as I've always wanted to cruise for longer distances. Obviously much easier on something like this versus my usual flavor of sport or naked bikes, so having the bags to pack food, snacks, water, and so on for those longer rides was really convenient. Let's go to number 3. Number 3 on the list of things that I like about the 2024 Honda Rebel 1100T is going to be the power. I mentioned in the last video that the first bike I ever rode was a Rebel 250, and talk about gutless. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was all the bike you ever needed your first time riding one, but for many years the Rebel was considered a small bike. There was the 250 that eventually grew into the 300 and eventually the 500, but that was about it. So when Honda launched the 1100, or more accurately the engine that was 1083 cc's, it was saying that it wanted to make a Rebel for the big kids, if you will. So obviously when throwing a 1100cc parallel twin into a Rebel body, you expect it to have some oomph. And it sure does. It makes 86 horsepower, 72 foot-pounds of torque, and that's all for a bike that weighs only 542 pounds. Again, that 542 being specifically to the T variant. So yeah, plenty of power, plenty of torque, and with both being close to equal, it just feels like the bike has plenty of power regardless of gear or what part of the rev range I'm in. Just feels like I always have enough to move out of the way, pass, take off, whatever the case might be. So realistically speaking, it's by no means a sport bike or a muscle cruiser that makes, 150 plus horsepower, but for a bike that is meant for relaxed highway cruising and city riding, it has more than enough to keep you happy. With that said, I think it's important to note that not only is the power adequate, but it is also delivered in a very great way. With full adjustability on the electronics, you are able to control how that power is delivered and how much of it is delivered. So even if you are a bit of a less experienced rider who is still learning, you can get away with riding this bike with some of the settings changed to make it that much easier and more dialed back. So again, great power, great control of power, and great power delivery. Really can't complain at all in that category. Alright, moving on, let's take a look at number 4 on the list of 5 things that I like about this 2024 Honda Rebel 1100T, and that is going to be the bang for the buck. Again, as I mentioned just a second ago, an entry-level Rebel comes in at under 10K, and the T version just under 10,700. That is a lot of bike for the money, a lot of features, accessories, quality, performance. Really, it's a great value. And unless you're looking to do track days or go off-road, I think it's the kind of bike that can do just about everything for you. It could seriously be an only bike type of a setup. Alright, so when you look at the bike's components, there aren't a ton of top-notch items like Brembo Stellima brakes or anything like that, but I do think that most of the parts are still of good brands, of good quality, and are good enough and not lacking, especially when you consider the price tag. I would say the Rebel is like a Honda Civic in that way, and as a person who has owned multiple Civics, I speak from experience. It's just a good value for the money. You get a lot of what you need. It's functional, practical, and just works. Granted, as practical as a motorcycle can be, but in this case, I think you get my point with making the comparison to the Honda Civic. Alright, so last but not least, number 5 on the list of 5 things that I like about the 2024 Honda Rebel 1100T is going to be the fact that you get a classic cruiser look, feel, and cruising ability without having to get a Harley. Now, before any Harley riders rip my head off, no, I didn't say anything is wrong with your Harley, but it's just not my cup of tea. Here's the thing, to me they are too big, too heavy, and typically underpowered for their size, and typically quite pricey, and the Honda Rebel basically gives me the exact opposite of all of what I just said, while still giving me that classic cruiser look and feel and overall vibe that one could be looking for. I mean, most Harleys weigh between 400 and 1,000 pounds. The average on that is about 700 pounds, but I'm willing to bet if I randomly pulled 50 Harleys off the road, the average would be closer probably to like 850 or so, right? AKA about 300-ish pounds heavier than a Rebel. So as a person who doesn't like heavy bikes, that figure just does it for me. A cruiser that is lightweight. The Rebel is big enough for me to be comfortable on at 6 foot 220 pounds, but it's still small enough where I felt comfortable squeezing it through tight spaces and lane splitting, and I already mentioned the value for the money. You can buy almost 2 Rebels for the price, so yeah, I love the fact that it's giving me what I want out of a cruiser without the things that I don't want. That's definitely a win in my book. Alright guys and gals, that's it for the 5 things that I like about the Honda Rebel 1100T. Be sure to visit Motorcyclegear.com as we would love to help you out with your motorcycle gear needs. You can also hit us up via phone or email, and if you'd like to share your thoughts on this video or the Honda Rebel 1100T, feel free to drop a comment down below. Thank you all for watching. Till next time.